little bit early. We are 3 minutes early, so I think one of our panelists may not know that he's supposed to be here right now. Let me go check for him.
We'll just call that altitude sickness.
Or a hangover.
Or reps. Hey, thanks for joining us.
We seem to be running about 5 minutes early, which is, I think, a first for the Search Insider Summit or any MediaPost event. We're on a tight ship indeed. All right, so this panel is about intent and interest-based search marketing, which may be a new topic to you guys or not. It was a new topic to me, so we're going to sort of try and get a general introduction first, but before I do that, we're going to introduce the panelists. To my left is Luke Coltrin, Senior Manager, Paid Search Display Online Video for Overstock.com. Excuse me. To his left, Hobson Powell, Director, Search Creative Development for Yahoo. To his left, Ty Tomastatit, the elusive VP for Marketing and New Business Strategy for Adkami. And to his left, down at the end, last but not least, Lori Wyman, CEO for the Search Monitor. And I'll ask you guys just to quickly maybe each give a 1 minute or less, 30 seconds overview of what your company does, just to kind of let people know.
Overstock.com, large internet retailer that sells mostly discounted goods. That was kind of our original business model, but we're shifting into more of an everyday low price strategy for a variety of products. I couldn't necessarily compare us to one other retailer out there, but we're playing in a lot of different fields right now. So that's Overstock. And we were going to O.co. That's shifting down is the official terminology. So we're still Overstock, and that's good news. So.
Yeah, I manage the search creative development team at Yahoo. We're a large team of creative specialists that work with our premium advertisers in the Search Alliance, working on ad center campaigns. And to go back to the Overture days in Pasadena, I've been in search for a while.
Thanks. Adkami is based in Foster City. We're a technology company, and we're the makers of the Adkami Intent Map, which radically simplifies search campaigns and massively increases scale and relevance and ROI for search marketers.
The Search Monitor provides market research information on search. You can get competitive information, brand compliance. A lot of folks use us for that. And also we watch affiliate marketers' activities on search as well.
Cool. All right. So intent and interest-based marketing and search marketing, I think, again, as I said, that it was a bit new to me. So first of all, we're going to start this very simple, basic. I have two questions. The first is, what do we mean by intent-based search marketing? The second one is, what do we mean by interest-based search marketing? The first one I'm going to give to Ty, intent, and then the second one I'm going to give to Lori, if that's okay.
Yep.
So Ty, what do we mean by intent-based search marketing?
Thanks. So obviously a hot product this holiday season are tablets. And let's say I'm an online retailer and I want to sell Apple iPads. And it's clearly a hot product. If I'm a search marketer, I need to go out and create every single possible keyword combination for that. I need to go out and predict what every single consumer who's looking for an iPad is going to type in. And strictly focusing on Apple iPad 2s, I could probably come up with a keyword campaign of easily in the tens of thousands or 20 thousands of keywords. And the reality is that all these people are searching for the exact same thing. They're searching for the Apple iPad 2. And so really, it's a different approach to search marketing, which is instead of focusing on each and every individual keyword, you have to realize that all these people are actually searching for the exact same thing, which is the Apple iPad 2. And from that perspective, rather than focusing on each individual keyword, you can focus on their underlying intent, which is the Apple iPad 2, you can group by that intent and then choose to market to the intent rather than to each individual keyword. So if you look at your keyword portfolio and start focusing on what are the real underlying intents of every single consumer behind those keywords, you can dramatically simplify your campaign by instead of having a keyword campaign that has hundreds of thousands of keywords, you can have a campaign that has hundreds of intent, and it makes the whole campaign much more manageable, and you can scale the campaign much more.
Cool.
Okay, then you asked me to define sort of what do we mean by interest. So interest is more like hobbies, activities, things that people like to do. And so I've got a few examples I've jotted down here, so just to give you some highlights. So if you take an interest keyword like boating, which would be someone's interest, and then you can take its counterpart, an e-commerce version of the same type of word, which would be something specific like wakeboard boats. And you can sort of start to see that there's a difference in the word. Someone looking for boating is an enthusiast looking for some information. Wakeboard boats is more of a specific product. Some other examples are things in cooking, like fried chicken recipe would be an interest, but a fried chicken cooker or fryer is more like the e-commerce equivalent. So when we're talking about interest, we're talking about what are people looking to, something they want to do, something they're interested in, a hobby, an activity, something they want more information on.
Cool. And you said that you had some data showing that a very large proportion of keywords really, especially in interest-based, have no bids on them, right?
Yeah, so...
I mean, that's where this came from.
Right. So we did a joint webinar with ComScore about 8 months ago, and one of the stats that ComScore put out was that about 50% of the 50% of the keywords online don't have ads on them. I'm sure some of the search engines in the audience could verify that stat for me. But so I just went and did some research on a few of these sort of interest keywords versus their e-commerce equivalents. And the results were pretty astounding. I think you can see there was a study being done when I first sat down that was on the screen asking how many folks were advertising on interest-based keywords. And it was actually pretty high compared to sort of the notes that I found when I was looking at, I just looked at about 15 different random keywords and their e-commerce counterparts. So I've got things like camping, camping tents, hiking packs, things like that. So looking at what is the interest version versus what would be the e-commerce version of those keywords. And do you want me to get into the data at this point, or?
Yeah, sure, you can. Yeah.
Keep going. Kind of want to dominate the whole panel here. So just taking some quick stats, just the number of advertisers was significantly different. Just on average across the keywords that I looked at, there were about 24 advertisers on the interest-based keywords, and their e-commerce counterparts had about 44. So close to double the amount of advertisers are playing in the sort of more direct space. You can sort of see why, because there's going to be a more direct route to a purchase on an e-commerce-based keyword, but the amount of searches that occur on the interest-based keywords are in the magnitude of about 55 times more. So there's a lot more going on the interest side, less going on the e-commerce side, and so there's a lot of opportunity that I can see from in the interest side of the universe for branding, and maybe less of an emphasis on direct to purchase from a search ad, and maybe more to getting some information out about your company, making some branding statements, pushing traffic to some informational content that'll lead to maybe a sale down the road.
Cool. So. Now, Luke, Overstock has worked with AdCommi, right?
Yes.
And I was wondering if you have any sort of, I know this is all pretty young still, right?
Yeah.
When did you guys start working together?
Man, how long has it been? Probably around the beginning, I'll say the beginning of the year.
Well, you've got some interesting preliminary results, right? Some very promising. Can you share those with us?
Yeah, I can't get into huge specifics, but we had done a lot of keyword generation based off product feeds. As you can imagine, we have millions of SKUs on site, so we thought, hey, this is a great way to generate some long tail keyword coverage for us, and it wasn't effective in really covering the long tail for us. There wasn't enough art in the process. It was just much too scientific and much too literal. Meaning, Canon camera, model number, this, silver or something. It's like no one's going to search for that. You know, there has to be some art behind, okay, is this really a valuable keyword? And what Adchemy has done, their kind of unique approach is this intent-based, where you know, they look at our products that kind of give them, I think, a lot of keywords to initially go off of, but then generate all these different intents around a keyword. So, for example, furniture, huge category for us. There's going to be a lot of different types of keywords. You know, there's going to be research keywords, there's going to be conversion keywords, and Adchemy is kind of separating those out for us and really differentiating them for us. So we've done a lot of different testing of different vendors, keyword generation vendors, and Adchemy is, in my opinion, has been one of the strongest performers. They've generated a large volume of keywords, but more importantly, that large volume of keywords is, as a percentage, is getting more conversions than what we saw off product feed-based keyword generation.
Cool.
And I think what Luke is alluding to is there's the advertiser's intent, which is this is your catalog and this is everything you want to sell. What that typically doesn't include is the consumer's intent, which is, you know, someone's going to type in cheap digital camera. Chances are from your product catalog, the word cheap is never going to appear in your catalog. And so no matter how much you mine your catalog, you're never going to come up with the keyword cheap digital camera. So you have to combine your intent, the advertiser's intent, with consumer intent and come up with good keywords as a result of that. So it's a combination of both types of intent.
I think one of the interesting things that Luke mentioned that you know, show a lot of promise in this particular space is that if your hundreds of thousands of keywords are more manageable, you really can bring more of the art into search marketing. You know, a lot of times we end up going with a few simple templates because that's what we can manage when we're dealing with millions or hundreds of thousands of keywords. But when, you know, the promise of this is that you can get more of those marketing messages in, you can do more testing, you can, you know, kind of be consistent with your media across other campaigns. And, you know, so that's something that, as somebody who hires a lot of copywriters to work on search campaigns, you know, we'd love to see, you know, more ability to do that and more advertisers kind of digging in that area of search marketing.
Mm-hmm. Is it, which brings me to the question, are these strategies, both intent and interest, is this intended to make search marketing more efficient within, you know, the existing marketplace, or is it intended to capture demand that maybe was slipping by, that, you know, chances and prospects that search wasn't getting before, or is it a little of each?
I think it's both. I think if you're an SCM right now, down in the lines, down in the battlefront, your life sucks. I mean, your life is, you know, your world is.
None of my team is here to hear that.
No, I mean, and it's a testament to them, which is they do a lot of heavy lifting. They're manipulating tons of spreadsheets. You know, and these spreadsheets have hundreds of thousands of keywords in them, and it's a nightmare. And I personally would hate to be an SEM. It's a lot of heavy work. And so because of that, there's a lot of opportunity to make life easier for them, and also have them do all the things they don't have time to do. And you'd be surprised, every single time we go to a major advertiser and we say, you know, oh, are you doing this, are you doing this? The typical answer is, no, we haven't had time to do that. Or have you touched this category? No, we haven't had time to do that. And that's because the work of an SEM is so manual at this point.
Yeah. It's and do you think, next question, do you think that the interest in these strategies reflects some dissatisfaction with the way search marketing is done now?
Well, I think in part it reflects that, you know, there are numbers out there that every quarter, you know, the amount of queries that are new is like 15 to 20%. I mean, search is continuously growing, and campaigns are growing. There are new product names coming out that end up being the 10,000 keywords that Ty mentioned. So it's just growing exponentially, and, you know, we can't just keep having, you know, adding another 50 million keywords to our campaigns. there could be ways to look at it in a more scalable fashion. So I think that's what they're sort of honing in on.
Yeah, I think it's a very efficient way to grow your keyword coverage. I mean, we can do search query reports till we're blue in the face, and those are good. But at Overstock, where maybe we don't have the budget of a Macy's or a Target, we have to be as quick and agile in integrating these new technologies as possible so we can get at least some type of advancement over our competitive set. And AdCommie has really been an efficient way to not only grow our keyword coverage, but finding keywords that are more likely to convert for us.
Well, just out of curiosity, what percentage would you say search marketing is of of Overstock's total marketing budget?
So we split out SEO and SEM. So would you like all of search or just SEM?
Sure, all of it.
Well, since SEO is a quote-unquote free channel,
right.
Even though we have like 3 development teams to support it, it's probably of the overall marketing budget, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20%. We still have a really big offline, TV, print, et cetera, very large email channel, but it's probably closer to combined 20%.
Okay, interesting. There's obviously, I guess, for example, with when you're doing intent-based marketing, how do you go about identifying intent-rich activities, and where does the data come from?
The data can come from anywhere. So you can find intent in your product catalog. Mm-hmm. If there's an on-site search engine, like Overture has a search engine, you can mine that query log. You can mine broad match queries that come in through broad match. And you can obviously even start out by mining your keywords. That's a great place to start too. And just because you have a keyword set out there doesn't mean that it's necessarily complete. That you can find a lot of data even within your keyword set. And then in addition, you can crawl sources on the web. You may not want to crawl the entire web. Google does that. You can crawl. You can crawl selected sources that have that have authoritative content on the topics that you cover, or on the products that you sell, etc.
Social media could play a role too, right? I mean, given that there are some privacy restrictions, privacy concerns, it is a potential data source for this, right? Is it not?
It could be if you crawl for the, there's a lot of noise. I mean, in general, when you're talking about intent in social media, when someone's on Facebook, typically their intent is to socialize with their friends and stay in touch with their friends and their family, and so you may not necessarily get a lot of authoritative content about, so let's say someone bought a new Canon digital camera and they're posting about it on Facebook. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're an authoritative figure on that product. Mm-hmm.
And Lori, for the interest-based keywords, what are the sources of data for that? Is it just?
Those are definitely a little bit more. You have to do a lot more research into what kind of your customers are interested in. If you know what you sell and you're very attuned to what you do, then you should be able to know what their interests are. Like if you're a sporting goods company and you sell sporting goods gear, snowboards, skis, hiking equipment, camping equipment, then you pretty much have a pretty good handle on what your customer is about, and you would just develop interest-based keywords around the kinds of things that they do. So, snowboarding is something I like to do, so I would look that up. Just going a little bit further than just like snowboarding jackets or boots or hats, you want to take it a lot further than that and start putting out keywords that are more about their interests around the sport, and that's going to get you into that interest category, which is a lot different, I think, than the intent side, because on the intent side, what you're trying to do there, if I may just sort of, well, it's not my forte, but you're trying to enhance your e-commerce keywords by generating more ROI and getting better conversions. So you can have even maybe a smaller pared-down keyword list. It's more manageable. But on the interest side, it's more of a branding exercise, an awareness exercise, and sort of a way to get your messaging out without an expectation necessarily of a sale converting on the other end of a click. And if you look at the cost per click on an interest-based keyword, it actually is kind of high compared to an e-commerce keyword. But if you look at it on more of a CPM basis, it's extremely low. Just on the 15 keywords that I looked at, a cost per click was $1.44 on the interest keywords, and about 90 cents on the e-commerce version. So you can see it's a kind of big disparity in the cost per click. But when you looked at it on a CPM basis, there's a 6 cent CPM on the interest keywords, which is, as far as I know, that's pretty damn good. So if you can get a 6 cent CPM, you should do that all day long.
And we can snowboard in Park City.
I'd love to do it this afternoon.
I think one of the tricks with interest-based keywords, it's definitely an area when we're talking with advertisers, we try to push them into that. There's the piece of relevance and landing page relevance that can be tricky. You have to develop the content in order to be able to bid on those keywords, and so that's the part where can you go that? Do you have the resources to build that out? And hopefully yes.
I mean, on the question of resources to build it out, I can imagine a whole array of things that you ought to do if you're going to be using either one of these, including, different ways of optimizing landing pages, for example, and all that. Can you speak a little bit to that? What other kinds of adjustments might people have to make in their search marketing?
Some companies already do a lot of interest-based work outside of the web. If you look at a company like Williams-Sonoma, they have cooking classes and things like that. If you look at Home Depot or Lowe's, every weekend they're offering how to do it yourself classes in the store. So they already have great content. Those are interest-based. Someone who needs to replumb their bathroom is very interested in plumbing and all the things that go along with that. And they are probably going to make a purchase eventually. So I think a lot of times these businesses do already have content pre-existing. They just need to put it onto a web page and make it work with the keyword list.
I think one of the things that's interesting when we talk about what you would do differently if you're managing by intent, and I've worked with the AdCommy team working on Ad Center, and we're doing a pilot over the course of Q1. I think one of the things that'll be challenging out in the market is sort of we've grown up in the search space with this industry standard of keywords and ad groups and campaigns. And in some ways, those were the original intents. when AdWords came out, an ad group was a new thing. It used to manage just keywords in Overture. And so that, in the early days, those were the intents. And now campaigns have gotten so large that there's this opportunity to take it a level up. And I wonder, Ty, how you guys think about it when you need to talk to advertisers about managing things differently, going a level up from the ad group and campaign to managing, one intent that could span across hundreds of campaigns.
Oh, that's a great point. And if you're managing by intent, it's almost as though intents can span multiple ad groups, and intents can span multiple campaigns as well. So the way we kind of see it is that the search publishers kind of forced a structure onto advertisers, which is you're going to have these keywords, you're going to have these ad groups, you're going to have these campaigns, and then you're going to have these accounts. We don't care kind of how your business is organized, but that's how we want you to organize your entire marketing. And that may or may not fit your marketing at all. That you may have, you may organize your entire marketing campaign on an 8-level hierarchy or something like that. And from that perspective, if you organize your campaign by intent, and if you know all the intent behind all of your keywords, then you can almost make the structure of your campaigns almost irrelevant, and all these intents can cut across an arbitrary number of groups or an arbitrary number of campaigns. So it allows you to organize your campaigns the way you want to. So.
I think this is kind of maybe one of the bigger challenges focusing AdCommy, because I know when myself and a few of my colleagues went out to visit AdCommy in May, and they talked to us about really managing your program around intents. This is a huge paradigm shift. You have an industry that's built on, what are my keywords doing? What are my ad groups doing? And going away from that is hard at kind of the grassroots level, at the SEM level. It's hard at the senior executive level because they're used to just the way paid search operates. I think there's a lot of advantages to it if you can get there. As you're creating hundreds of thousands, millions of keywords in our case, to have the human capital to just manage those we don't have, simply, and we probably won't get unless things just completely change. So I think it's a challenge, but I think it's a very interesting opportunity to kind of take the management a level above where it's currently at.
And I think from the publisher standpoint, we look at it as anything that's going to help advertisers continue to grow their campaigns. We love that. And I think we just saw from Neil's presentation the expected growth in the industry, and we know that anytime we're adding keywords, I mean, for example, my team's uploaded on behalf of advertisers thousands of kind of keyword expansions over the course of a year, and every time we do that, we increase clicks 15 to 20%. We know that there's going to be continued growth in expanding your keyword set. So anything that kind of helps drive that, makes it easier for marketers to pull that together, we're definitely in favor of.
At the same time, isn't intent-based part of it is kind of winnowing down keywords too to some in part?
Actually, it's the contrary.
It's the opposite. It's abstracting up. So if you abstract up, then you are managing fewer things, but you can actually mushroom the number of keywords underneath. So you can be managing hundreds of intents, but you can have an order of magnitude or 2 orders of magnitude more keywords underneath.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Getting back to what you were saying about the senior level, I think it's ironic, first of all, that now the accepted old traditional way of doing things is search marketing. That's what they're used to, and good old-fashioned search marketing. I don't know what this newfangled stuff is. Is that really what it is? It's like that, and do you find some resistance, or not that you have to talk a lot of crap about your bosses?
I think like any large company, our executives grew up and TV was king, and that's a large reason why TV is still a huge part of budget. I think they see paid search, and they're used to how it is. And in my experience, senior executives are resistant to changing their view, or at least their experience, and just kind of going a different direction. I guess it depends on the senior executive, but in my experience, it is a paradigm shift for them, and it takes a lot of evidence, a lot of data to show them the reasons why you would want to do such a thing.
Just have them manage a spreadsheet of 500,000 keywords, and they'll want to change the way things are done.
Come to you in tears. This is an interesting question. Is either for both intent and interest-based search marketing, do they lend themselves particularly well to a particular kind of category of product or service? And also, is there a particular kind of advertiser, same question, different way. Is there a particular kind of advertiser that is best suited to using these approaches?
On the interest side, if you're purely a lead gen business, interest, depending on what type of lead gen, I guess, might not be the best thing for you. But on a retail side, everything that we sell in any kind of environment always has an interest tied to it. If you're looking to cook, if you need to figure out that you need a saute pan, you probably need to saute something, and you might not know what that is. So that's your interest. If you're a gardener, you need to know how to grow stuff. That's your interest. Someone sells plants. That's the sales side of it. On the interest side is the consumer, always at the other end of that. So I think it's big for retail for sure.
From an intent perspective, if there's a diversity of intent, that's the best thing, which is if you sell 1,000 different things and people can have many, many different intents to get to what you want to sell, then managing by intent is really useful. The converse is, let's say you sell only one and one only thing, which is say life insurance or whatever it is. So there are segments or industries or categories where essentially people only sell one thing. Then managing by intent isn't necessarily all that useful or all that helpful, because you can only have so many intents when you want to buy life insurances. You want to buy life insurance, and that's it.
You had also, we talked about sort of latent intent and using intent marketing to create or uncover demand. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, I mean, there may be people out there who don't, probably not in this room, but there may be people out there who don't want to buy a tablet. At least they don't think they want to buy a tablet yet. So tapping into latent intent, that's what actually display marketing and TV and possibly even social advertising is good for, which is tapping into latent intent and building latent, and then even good social PR might be good for building latent intent. Like if you have more of your friends posting, "Wow, I really love my new tablet," etc. That's a way for latent intent to build. In addition, all of the interest-based stuff, that can be looked at as another intent too, where consumers, their intent is to seek out information. And to Hobson's point is that if you can market to an intent of people looking for information, you just need to be able to give them information as well too. So you can tap into different parts of the funnel however you want to, and just recognizing that intent is at different levels of maturity at each step of the funnel.
That's interesting about the different levels of maturity, and is that sort of inherent in the terms that you're identifying, like, or is it how do you determine where they fall?
That's just the age-old marketing purchase funnel, which is people. There's kind of latent need before, and then people start researching, and then people start active consideration where they start comparison shopping, and then they're actually buying and purchasing. So that's just the purchase funnel.
I think this is kind of another challenge for Adcomi or for any keyword generation company that's really going to focus on intent, because people are used to a very, this keyword has this click-through rate, this conversion rate. It's very far down in the funnel. It's kind of the challenge that Facebook is having right now. It's much more high funnel. That's why the ROI stinks. And we don't, a lot of retailers or whoever, my experience, we have a tough time supporting that. But again, I think there's in an attribution model that can maybe start to quantify some of the benefits of these intents and spending money on people who are researching iPads as opposed to wanting to buy. I see that becoming more prevalent in the future.
And it's interesting. One thing that, although I'm glad that we kind of distinguish between intent and interest, and that was one of the goals for this panel, they do both have in common it's certainly a new way of thinking about search. And with an interest, it's this idea of search as branding, I think, is really interesting. And the fact that you can get a 6-cent CPM on these terms is pretty incredible. I guess we are. How much more time do we have, Lori? Are we good? A few more minutes. Okay. One thing I always like to ask this is, we're obviously pro these things, but what are some of the challenges? What are some of the difficulties that your average search marketer might face when trying to get into this? And be honest, please.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges here will be getting the sort of frontline folks who are managing campaigns who have gotten wins for their clients by really digging into the weeds and finding that way they can differentiate on a particular keyword or change the ads in this one specific ad group, winning them over to where they can understand, all right, you're going to take it a level much higher and you're going to manage more holistically, but showing them how they can still get those sort of individual wins throughout the campaigns and kind of winning those guys over. I think that might be one of the challenges. I don't know, Luke, how was that for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, that is challenging. I think, again, it just comes back to that paradigm shift. You know, you have to get out of the normal day-to-day you're used to and come to the new day-to-day. And that can be challenging, but if an organization can buy into it and get behind it, it goes a lot smoother.
And then on the interest side, the click-through rate on the interest-based keywords is really low. So you always have to worry about quality score. So if you just threw a whole bunch of interest keywords into your search campaigns with the low click-through rate, actually could harm your campaign. So you have to come up with strategies around how to deal with that. And that's probably the biggest problem with it.
Which would just entail probably distinguishing, you know, that I'm going to make this part of the campaign. Branding.
Yeah,
right.
brand. I mean, you almost want to have a whole new account just for your branding keywords.
And keep them separate.
Yeah, it's keep it very separate.
Quarantine.
Yeah, so quarantine those keywords.
Okay. I guess, can we turn it over for questions?
Absolutely. I think,
I see one person already.
There's a tweeted question that I think somebody should stand up and ask.
There's a tweeted question. I forgot.
You just touched on it. So when we think about how search has grown and it being more relevant, whether it's intent, when you go to interest-based keywords, then you're kind of getting away from that. And Overstock or large brands are probably going to be Home Depot on point. But you have this whole other set of marketers out there, search marketers out there, that's what Google kind of drove us away from. But you hit the nail on the head when you talked about putting it into a different campaign and keeping it segmented from your. So you kind of answered the question at the end.
Good.
So Jordan LeBaron from REI, but question was just about the interest-based keywords. How much of your budget have you been able to carve out for those type of keywords, and have you been able to lock down the value of that investment and really getting down to the nitty-gritty, or is it more of a kind of a risk and you're just playing that out to see how they're converting?
So we recently launched a new kind of ad test and a new vertical campaign for us, and there's some bid testing that has to happen there. You know, I mean, I think we realized the first 2 weeks we've got to see what things can generate, and then we had 2 or 3 weeks of optimization after that point, and the volume of keywords, and you know, we're mostly interested in conversions. You know, I don't think we're to that kind of higher funnel point yet. I hope we can get there, but as a volume of new keywords that generated conversion, Adchemy performed much better than what we had generated with product feed stuff. So it was a very clear value proposition to us to increase that long tail coverage that's actually getting clicks and conversions, as opposed to what we had tried in the past just was not very effective. As far as budgets go, the nice thing about my world, I don't have like really strict budgets. If I can say, look, I want to do this, I think it's worth testing, they'll let me do it. And Adchemy has warranted those tests by previous performance, is just how they're uniquely approaching the space.
Got another one?
Yeah, this is Russ Mann from Cavario. So I'm really interested in how intent-based search intersects with new vocal search, i.e. Siri and Google Android voice recognition, and also the semantic web. Have you guys seen any indications yet that people using, well, first of all, that search engines have actually taught consumers how to search, that we all use more Boolean-like phrases now while we search, and that with the introduction of voice recognition, both the very well-hyped Siri and the less well-hyped Google Android voice recognition, I use that on my phone and love it. Are we finding that the way people search and they vocalize their search is different than the way they type their searches? Is that providing new opportunities for intent-based search?
That's a great question, and I think also there's a roundtable later on this morning around voice-based search. You raised a really good point, which is search is not the only place where you can find great intent. meaning not just typed in search, but vocal search is another great place for intent. Even just mobile apps. So if I'm on Yelp and if I'm browsing through Yelp for Thai restaurants in San Francisco, that's essentially the Google equivalent of typing in Thai restaurant San Francisco. So that behavior is a query equivalent. So I think there was even an article last week on will Siri eat Google's lunch? That will everything be a voice-based search in the long run as opposed to people just typing it in? And I think that they will converge, and in fact, they may have already converged a long time ago. And a lot of people will tell you that a lot of the core engineering team at Google used to come from voice-based search and voice recognition. And so voice recognition is generally perceived to be a much more difficult problem than just typed-in search, because you have to be able to recognize what the person is saying as well, and then be able to make sense of that as well. So.
It's hi. I'll just pick up one note on that, and then I'll ask my question. Rob, is that okay? We can engage, right?
That's good. That's the idea.
Yeah. Just I think the other thing too, when you think about Google's Play voice search, right, between Goog 411 and all the, they're sitting on tons of spoken, word and mapping data that they'll be able to, arguably more effectively than Apple with Siri, be able to kind of cut down on some of the errors and such, especially when it comes to non-native English speakers. So they've got it there. It's just about packaging it. Apple did the best job of packaging it with Siri, bringing it to the front, making it the big feature, the big app of the latest iPhone. So at any rate, my question is, I didn't catch it live, but I saw it bouncing around on the Twitter stream. This stat that 50% of keywords searched on the web don't have ads connected with them, and I just wanted to call that back out. And is that right? And do we have a source on that?
And that was me that threw that stat out there. It was from a webinar that we did with ComScore about 8 months ago. It was their stat. That's the source. And if you want, I can send you the slides. So.
Hi. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
George Mickey from RKG. I wanted to make a comment on the branding value of the impression that we're talking about a 6-cent CPM, which sounds attractive, but we're talking about a little text ad that people aren't looking at because it's not what they were looking for, as opposed to a cost per impression of a television commercial where you're presenting your stuff. I think all impressions are not created equally, and we need to bear that in mind when we're thinking about branding value. The larger question, though, is I think all of us have probably heard the conversion funnel argument made about people searching on general intent-based keywords, and then more specifically later, and then more specifically, and conversion happens later. Has anybody seen any data that actually shows that happens to any great degree?
I mean, I know from what we see in Google alone, if you look at impressions for paid keywords, we have over 65,000 unique conversion paths. So what's the benefit of that first impression that 100 impressions later the person converted? I don't think we have the answer to that. If anybody does, I'll be around, so talk to me. We'll set up a test. But there's some benefit. I don't know how to quantify.
Yeah, I was, the folks who have done these studies, RKG, EF, Marin, I think, has published studies. It's a wonderful story that people have been telling for a long time. It doesn't actually happen very often. It's a better story than reality, at least according to all the data I've seen.
Jerry Bavaro from Resolution Media. In interest, intent, and preference as well, brand affinity, style preference, cost consciousness or not, obviously these things tie back to customer segmentation and a lot of work that gets done, probably by many in this room, many brands, around customer segmentation, valuing the audience, household income, prism segments, all of that. I'm curious what your thoughts are on how to take the query-based research and tie it to that very valuable function for many brands today, really all brands today. Are any of you doing that?
I'll take a stab.
Smashing, like for you, you
I'll take a stab.
Smashing that data up against query-based data against segments.
Yeah.
Valuing the audience that way.
Yep. So I think, you know, just for our business model, if we acquire a customer that's searching for leather sectional sofa over a customer that's searching for the Help DVD, those are going to have very different lifetime values for us. And the customer segmentation that we do is very behavioral based. We look very little at demographics. We look very little at other things. We've done that in the past. It just has not proven as effective as behavioral segmentation. So we know if we have economic value, which is the margin acquired on that order plus the expected margin over the next 12 months. We have economic value by keyword. So then there may be some keywords that look negative on a direct basis, but we know in the next 12 months we're going to recover that negative cost. So I don't know if that's getting directly at your question, but I think that's how we're going about it. At least segmentation is mostly behavioral based, and if we acquire that customer, if they convert, what are they going to buy, or what do we forecast they're going to buy over the next 12 months?
Okay, but you're not breaking out your queries based on segments and subsegments.
No, we do
the eco-mom, and this is the way they behave.
Yeah,
this is what it relates to as queries.
We do a lot more of that in email that hasn't necessarily gotten over to search quite yet for us.
Okay.
Hey there, Joe Stevens, Yahoo. Question on intent. So just kind of curious, I guess this is more of a question from AdCommie, or for AdCommie. So what percentage would you say of keywords actually have an intent that it's changing, right? So for example, iPad 2 today, the intent is probably different in 6 months from now, right? And then also, and maybe I'm just trying to understand the concept a little bit more. And then what percentage of keywords actually have multiple intents, and kind of some insights in how you manage that?
That's a great question. The simple example is cheap digital camera. So cheap can mean one thing today versus another thing 6 months versus a year from now. So a cheap digital camera might be $100 or less today, might be $80 or less a year from now, and might be $40 or less 2 years from now. So that's constantly changing. And you can still have the word cheap, but the intent might mean different things over the course of time for the consumer. And as new products are introduced, so new digital camera or new tablet, obviously every season you're going to have new digital cameras or new tablets, et cetera. Or big TV. I mean, big TV now is like 80 inches, 75 inches. So that's constantly changing. And your other question, there are definitely words out there that can mean different things. So Big Apple. If someone types in Big Apple, am I searching for a big fruit, or am I searching for New York City? And so words can have multiple intents, and then you have to start looking at the rest of the query string to really understand, to be able to disambiguate the true intent behind my phrase, Big Apple. Now, if I only type in Big Apple, it's anyone's guess, it's 50-50. But if there's other intent contained in the query, then perhaps I can start to separate out and disambiguate.
Great. With that, I want to thank our panelists and our moderator.